What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back for another Game of Thrones Season 8 Q&A video. I haven't made one of these videos in a while, so I figured it was time to answer some more of the questions you may have. I made a post on my community tab and I received over 100 questions, but unfortunately I was only able to answer a handful today because some of my answers took a little longer than I expected. I will make another one of these shortly so I can get to some more of your questions, but without wasting any time today, let's just jump right into them. The first question I want to answer is from Patreon, and this will take me a few minutes to explain, so I want to tackle this one right away. Nikki Sinclair's question says, will the Stark name survive once the Great War is over? Jon is a Targaryen, and Bran is the Three-Eyed Raven. So that only realistically leaves Sansa and Arya, but this also relies on them surviving to the end. Could the Stark name disappear? Could this be the bittersweet ending? Okay, this is a really great question, and this is something that concerns me because I love House Stark. First, I just want to say yes, this could be the bittersweet ending. The Stark children could live, which would be sweet, but if they don't reproduce and the Stark name dies with them, then that would be bitter. However, I think there is a way to solve this problem. People ask me this question all the time, and I have actually answered this question in a Q&A video before. And I even made a video about this topic around a year ago. But when I read your question last night, it gave me a new idea, and now I have a new answer to this question. I made a video a few days ago about Jon Snow, and in that video I read all the book quotes that I could find about Jon Snow being the king. But one of those quotes may have the answer to this question, so I want to read this to you again. Then I will tell you how it relates to our current story. This actually isn't the first time House Stark came close to going extinct, but thankfully many years ago, an illegitimate son was born, and it ended up saving House Stark. And I think that's what could happen again. The funny thing is, when this story was introduced in the books, it was actually told to Jon Snow, and that was probably done for a very important reason. When Jon Snow captured Ygritte, she tells him a story about a bastard from Winterfell, just like Jon Snow. But this story she tells him has some very interesting parallels to our current story, and our current situation of House Stark not having an heir to carry on the name. Ygritte tells Jon the story about Bael the Bard, who was the king beyond the wall at the time, and this is what she says. Bael the Bard was king beyond the wall a long time back. The Stark in Winterfell wanted Bael's head, but never could take him, and the taste of failure galled him. One day in his bitterness, he called Bael a craven who preyed only on the weak. When word of that got back, Bael vowed to teach the Lord a lesson. So he scaled the wall, skipped down the King's Road, and walked into Winterfell one winter's night with harp in hand, naming himself Skyggeric of Skagos. Skyggeric means deceiver in the old tongue, that the first men spoke and the giants still speak. North or south, singers always find a ready welcome. So Bael ate at Lord Stark's own table, and played for the Lord in his high seat until half the night was gone. The old songs he played, and new ones he'd made himself, and he played and sang so well that when he was done, the Lord offered to let him name his own reward. All I ask is a flower, Bael answered, the fairest flower that blooms in the gardens of Winterfell. Now as it happened, the winter roses had only then come into bloom, and no flower is so rare nor precious. So the Stark sent to his glass gardens and commanded that the most beautiful o' the winter roses be plucked for the singer's payment. And so it was done. But when the morning come, the singer had vanished, and so had Lord Brandon's maiden daughter. Her bed they found empty, but for the pale blue rose that Bael had left on the pillow where her head had lain. Jon had never heard this tale before. Lord Brandon had no other children. At his behest, the black crows flew forth from their castles in the hundreds, but nowhere could they find any sign of Bael or this maid. For most a year they searched, till the Lord lost heart and took to his bed, and it seemed as though the line of Starks was at its end. But one night as he lay waiting to die, Lord Brandon heard a child's cry. He followed the sound and found his daughter back in her bedchamber, asleep with the babe at her breast. They had been in Winterfell all the time, hiding with the dead beneath the castle. The maid loved Bael so dearly she bore him a son, the song says. Bael left the child in payment for the rose he'd plucked unasked, and that boy grew to be the next Lord Stark. Now this story is very important because of all the parallels to the current story. In the recent Jon Snow video I made, I pointed out how this story relates to Jon Snow's parents. Bale the Bard liked to sing and play the harp, just like Rhaegar. Bale the Bard gave a blue rose to the Stark daughter, just like Rhaegar. And the Stark daughter fell in love with Bale the Bard, and bore him a bastard son, just like Lyanna did with Rhaegar. That's why this story was told to Jon, because it foreshadows his own birth. But there was something else mentioned in this story that is key to the Stark's current problem. In this story, Ygritte tells Jon, she says Lord Brandon was worried because he had no other children, and his daughter went missing. It looked like the Stark line was at its end, because there was no heir to carry on the name. But that was until he found his daughter back in her room with a baby boy laying on her chest. This baby was the bastard in Winterfell, just like Jon. But the story says this baby grew up to be Lord Stark, so they must have legitimized this baby to save the Stark house. Lord Brandon's daughter didn't marry Bale the Bard, she just had his kid. So technically the kid should have had the last name Snow. But they gave it the Stark name anyway, so their house didn't go extinct. What makes this story so interesting is because we have another bastard in Winterfell, Jon Snow, who may have to save the Stark house from going extinct again. How ironic would it be if the bastard Jon Snow was the one who produced a Stark heir for Winterfell, even though he is technically a legitimate Targaryen? Jon never saw himself as a Stark, and he would even have nightmares where he's standing in the crypts of Winterfell and he would scream to the dead kings of Winter that he's not a Stark. Even Lady Catelyn hated the thought of this bastard being associated with the Starks. But now the fate of this ancient house may rest on his shoulders, just like the previous bastard in Winterfell did in the story Ygritte had told Jon. None of the current Starks are sexually active right now. Sansa, Arya, and Bran are all single, and we don't even know if Bran could have kids even if he wanted to, and Arya has never had sex at all. Sansa was married a few times, and unfortunately she was raped by Ramsay, but the showrunners and producers already said she is not pregnant. So as of right now, that only leaves Jon Snow. And we know Jon has been having sex, and there was already a ton of foreshadowing that leads me to believe Daenerys will be pregnant with his child. So I'm starting to think Jon will do exactly what Lord Brandon's daughter did to save the Stark name. This would be history repeating itself in this story once again. This would be the second time a bastard in Winterfell saved the Stark name. The cool thing about this is their baby would be made up of ice and fire, so the Stark line from here on out would have a little bit of both of these special bloodlines. I hope this answered your question, Nikki. You definitely weren't the only person who asked me how the Starks can save their house from going extinct. I think the Bale the Bard story foreshadows how the Starks will save their line in the future. It will be done through the bastard in Winterfell, just like it was done before. That's another reason why this story was told to us in a Jon chapter, because it will ultimately fall onto his shoulders, and the Stark's house will be saved through him, but this is just my opinion. The next question is from Coolio63. Who do you believe is the first major character to die in the 8th season? I think the first major death will happen in the north. Now that the Night King is south of the Wall, he will be taking out each town or village as he works his way down to Winterfell. One of the first characters to die that we know by name will probably be Little Ned Umber or at least Karstark, since they are directly in the Night King's path, and they will be the first line of defense in the north, but they aren't major characters. Since Miguel Sapochnik is directing episode 3, that will probably be the first big battle next season, and this will most likely be the start of the Great War, and this is when a main character will die. In my opinion, we will lose characters like Grey Worm and Beric Dondarrion right away. Beric Dondarrion has been living on borrowed time ever since season 3 or 4, so it's just a matter of time before he dies. He did tell the Hound he would see him again, and this will probably be at Winterfell during the Great War. Beric will likely save someone's life before he falls. They have also been building up this Grey Worm and Missandei relationship, and when they do things like this, it's usually because they are going to kill one of the characters off. Since Grey Worm will be fighting in the battle, he will probably be the one from this relationship to die. Also, during an interview, the showrunners were talking about Tormund and Brienne, and they were talking about their relationship and how all the fans enjoyed these characters' interactions with each other in the show. But they basically said they will have to kill one of these characters off before the end. And if they were to do this, I think they would kill Tormund. He is actually lucky he survived the last mission beyond the wall. If it wasn't for the Hound, he would be dead. I think Tormund may find himself in a similar situation, and just when we think Tormund will be saved again, he won't, and this time he will die in battle. I would absolutely hate for this to happen because I love Tormund's character, but I'm afraid most of the warriors will die in the Great War, and they will start to kill off characters at a fast rate, and I believe Grey Worm, Beric, and maybe Tormund will be some of these main characters to go first. The next question is from Tim F, and he says, do you think the Hound will make it out alive and start Westeros' first all-you-can-eat chicken farm? My answer is yes and yes. The Lord of Light has big plans for Sandor Clegane, and I don't think he's going anywhere just yet. This character has been through one hell of a metamorphosis, and I believe he will make it to the end. The Hound falls under the Cripples, Bastards, and Broken Things, and these are the characters that will be needed in order to break the wheel. Daenerys cannot do this alone. She will need the help from all these underdogs. I have made a video specifically about this topic before, so I won't go into all the details again, but I think all the characters that were featured in that episode back in Season 1, Episode 4 will be the characters that survive until the very end. No one expected any of them to be in the position they are in now, but the fate of the entire realm is resting on their shoulders, and together they will bring the dawn. The Night King will be defeated, and Cersei will be removed from power. Westeros will never be the same again, but they will give all the survivors hope for a better world to live in. People will die, sacrifices will have to be made, castles will be destroyed, and some of the most powerful houses will come to an end. But those who live will see a better day. This next question is from Doug Beck, and he says, since the Night King became active just prior to, or at the same time as the beginning of the Game of Thrones series, it has to be linked to something or someone just prior to where the series starts. Unless the Night King has future sight, which Bran may have or get, he wouldn't have to known back then of Jon, Dany, and the dragons. I think the Night King has always been tied into the werewood net and something he learned through it and his warging. Beyond that, I don't know enough good lore from the books to postulate. I kinda think it's related to him being a Stark or Starkish. Okay, what Doug is talking about is why the Night King has decided to become active now. Something had to have happened very recently for the Night King to start gathering his troops to advance onto the wall. I believe it's all tied into the werewood net. The Night King was created by the Children of the Forest, and they all used the werewood net to see things in the past, and even see some events that will unfold in the future. This is how Bloodraven always knew he would eventually meet Bran in the cave and begin to train him himself to become the next three-eyed raven. Bran has also seen bits and pieces of the future. He has seen the throne room destroyed and covered in snow, and he also seen the wildfire explode under the Sept. The Night King uses the same werewood system, which we have seen him use before when he touched Bran. And once the Night King went rogue and broke off from the children, he started to use the werewood net for himself. And I think he knew there were going to be some very special people coming to wipe him out in the future. Characters like Bran, Jon, and Daenerys. I think the Night King knew they would eventually come, so he is reacting to them. And that's why he started to amass an army. The Night King started to prepare for this day before they were even born. I don't think any of this happened by accident or coincidence. Bloodraven has been manipulating the events in Westeros for a very long time, and I think the Night King was preparing for this too. That's why the Night King wanted to kill Bloodraven so bad, because it was personal. He knew Bloodraven was going to do everything in his power to kill the others. That's why the Night King walked straight into the cave and took out Bloodraven first. That's why the Night King looked very pissed off when he finally got his chance to come face to face with the man who was moving all the chess pieces to end the White Walkers for good. That's also how the Night King knew Bran was going to be there in the vision. It was a setup. He knew exactly where to catch Bran, to be able to touch him and enter the cave to finally kill Bloodraven. The Night King knows when certain events were going to happen because he's seeing things through the werewood net too. The Night King tried to spring a trap on Jon. The Night King could have wiped out Hardhome at any time that he wanted to, but he waited until Jon showed up because he needs to kill Jon, because he knows he's one of the few characters that will threaten the existence of the others. He also sprung the trap on Daenerys and her dragons. He was only able to kill one dragon, but he almost killed two. None of this is an accident, in my opinion. The Night King was waiting for this day to come, just like Bloodraven was, but now it's up to Bran to carry on that knowledge. This is another reason why I think the Night King is heading for Winterfell, because he knows everyone will be there, Bran especially. The next question is from Low to A. Do you think when Jon knows the truth about himself, he will let Daenerys claim the throne or not? Because in the first season when Aemon talked to Jon, he said, "What is honor compared to a woman's love? What is duty against a feel of a newborn son in your arms?" In this case, maybe Jon will let her get the throne and their son will not be a bastard. And if she is not pregnant, perhaps he would not make that decision like Aemon. I know I've always felt this way about Jon. We all know he has no desire to rule the Seven Kingdoms. He didn't even want to rule the Night's Watch, although he was happy that the men thought he was fit to do so, but it was never his goal. Jon wanted to be a ranger, not the ruler. I think Jon will basically do what Aemon did. Jon is technically next in line, but he will refuse the position and give it to Daenerys if she still wants to rule the Seven Kingdoms by the end. Jon will probably help make some of the decisions so all the people can live a better life, but I can never see him wanting to sit on the Iron Throne. And I don't even think Daenerys will want the throne by the end either. I think the Iron Throne will be destroyed, and they will split the kingdoms up into different territories. But just to stay on track from the original question, I think Jon will pass on the opportunity to rule, like Aemon did, and he will step aside for Daenerys if she wants the position still. But I think they will figure out a new way to keep things in order and make Westeros a more civilized place to live. I wanted to try to keep this video under 20 minutes long, or else it will take over 10 hours to make, so I'm going to end this one right here. If you still have some questions, please put them down below and I will make another Q&A video like this. I want to thank everyone that submitted some questions, and I want to thank all of you for watching. And I have to give a special thanks to everyone on Patreon for continuing to support the channel. I really appreciate that, and I hope you all have a great day. I will see you in the next one. Bye.